Bonjour tout le monde. Tout d'abord, j'aimerais remercier les organisateurs de cette conférence de leur invitation. Good morning, everyone. Thanks so much to the organizers for inviting me to be a respondent with SKAWENNATI. And thanks to all of you for attending. My name is Sylvie FORTIN, and I'm the director of the Montreal Biennial. It's a great honor this morning to be facilitating the conversation with SKAWENNATI. SKAWENNATI was born in Kahnawake, Mohawk Territory. She graduated from Concordia University, where she is now based. She is a co-director with Jason Lewis of Aboriginal Territories in Cyberspace, a research network of artists, academics, and technologists investigating and creating Indigenous virtual environments. This year, they launched IIF, the Initiative for Indigenous Futures. SKAWENNATI's work has been exhibited extensively, most recently at the Denver Biennial of the Americas, as well as the Montreal Biennial. She won the 2009 Best New Media Award for Imaginative, and I can't pronounce that word, Idle George. Contemporary Art Fellowship in 2011. Her works are found in many public and private collections. So without further ado, thanks.
Sego sewa gwego. Bonjour tout le monde. Hi everyone. I am a member of the Turtle Clan of Kahnawake, the Kanien'kehá:ka Nation. We're better known as Mohawks. Welcome to our territory. I'd like to start today with a traditional greeting, or at least just a very little part of one. It's called the Ohodo Gardiwat Dakwa, words before all else. And it's a beautiful piece of oration that my ancestors and contemporaries would say before every gathering. I think that they really knew how to set the tone. So I'm just going to do very little bit of this, and here we go. Agwego Oska, andide wa wenuni, ne unkwa nigura, tenyo tino waradu, ne unkwe su'a. Now, we gather our minds together as one, and we remind ourselves that we, the people, have been given the duty to live in harmony with each other and with all living things. We think of all the people that are here and all the people who would have liked to have been here but couldn't make it. We think of all the people that we've met and all those that we have not yet met. We remember that all of us are connected, related, and bound together in the same circle of life. And so, we bring our minds together as one, as we pile high our greetings, express our love, and give thanks for the people. And so now, together we all say, now our minds are one. Yay! So here I would like to say, Nyawa, Goa, thank you. First to Giselle for inviting me to do this, and to all the organizing committee for supporting that. Sylvie Fortin, Nyawa Goa, for coming on this ride with me. I thank all of you for your good minds, for listening, and for presenting your work here too at this conference. And finally, I must always thank Jason Lewis for everything. And there are my little boys waving. So I was asked, I'm going to kind of try to read and not read at the same time. It's pretty, yeah. I was asked to share and discuss my experiences, projects, and contributions, bringing an Indigenous perspective to the forefront of media art histories and cyber culture. And I'm so grateful to be asked to do that. Thank you. It's really wonderful. And I've, kind of done a lot. All right, that's what I was supposed to have that slide up when I said that. So now's this slide. Okay. As a young girl, I enjoyed a lot of science fiction. I think the reason I liked it so much was because I got to see possible futures. Star Trek imagined a united human race. Snow Crash imagined us living better lives in the metaverse. Space travel, time machines, avatars, robots, aliens, artificial intelligences, I love them all. And they're fascinating. Storytellers have been asking and answering difficult ethical questions about what we might do when we come upon these eventualities, and that's what I love. It was around the year 2000, at the turn of the millennium, that I started to notice that there were no native people in the future. That was a drag. Yes, there was Chakotay in Star Trek, and in Snow Crash there was the formidable antagonist, Raven, but otherwise we didn't see any images of us doing anything, going out in the stars or riding on spaceships. On the other hand, the vast majority of public images of Native people had us set in the past. You know the images I'm talking about, right? So this worried me. I also found that the people that I knew, especially the young people, kind of wished they lived in the past, the Native people, I mean. And that was also troublesome, because if we can't see ourselves in the future, I'm pretty sure we won't be there. So that's when I decided to make images of us in the future. And I'm pretty sure, oh yes, now has a term. I became an Indigenous Futurist. So for those of you who don't already know, Indigenous Futurism is a brand new thing. It's an art movement. It's so new that there's not even a Wikipedia entry about it yet, okay? Like Afrofuturism, it's an aesthetic that draws upon elements of historical, speculative, and science fiction, as well as indigenous mythologies and traditional knowledge. And to me, this includes the practice of resistance. Just this fall, a new online publication was launched. In it, a self-proclaimed Indigenous futurist named Lindsay Catherine Cornum, who I've never met, had this to say, and this is, I'm going to sit down now, I think. I'm going to read it to you. So I do that switch thing. Hello? Okay. By now, it has become a racist cliche that many would rather speculate that the Egyptian pyramids or the large mound structures of the Mississippi tribes or any other example of the virtuoso structures of non-European groups were made possible only by extraterrestrial assistance. The joke's on them, because it's us, those perpetually underestimated brown people, who are the advanced race capable of large-scale works of technology, memorial, etc. In other words, we are the aliens we've been waiting for. Do you get the goosebumps that I do? God, I love that. Okay. But let's go back a bit in time to 1996. I didn't yet know that I was an Indigenous futurist. I just figured that out about a year ago. In 1996, I was just diving into a project that would set me on a path as a new media artist. I chose to work with new media because it felt like the future. And for the record, I consider new media to include software, websites, apps, video games, virtual world, and machinima. To me, that's what I call cyberspace. All right. My first new media project was called Cyberpowwow. How many people here remember the palace? All right, I do have to explain it. It was one of the first graphical chat rooms. So it was the evolution of IRC, Internet Relay Chat. So of course today everyone chats, right, on Facebook and on their phones, and it's totally normal. But in 1996, this was pretty awesome, and it was, of course, all represented in images. Okay, this is when I first had an avatar, and the default avatar in the palace was a little smiley face, and your words came out in little balloons like a cartoon. I saw the palace as an excellent way to connect Aboriginal artists across vast geographical distances that separate us. And so Cyberpowwow was born. It was an online gallery and library where people could go look at art or read texts and also chat together while doing it. The powwow part was that we would meet over 2 days, both in cyberspace and in real life. because so few people at the time had a computer, a modem, internet access, and the knowledge of how to download it and use it all. These meetings took place in artist-run centers and cultural centers, which we called gathering sites. Today, this would be called a mixed reality event. There were 4 iterations of Cyberpowwow. For each, I and my eventual co-curators invited artists and writers to make work around a specific theme. So the first Cyberpowwow was actually a website, and we only met in the palace, okay? The main palace, which looked like a palace. And so here we are doing our thing, okay? We're like trying to talk about the artwork that's on the website, and there are other people doing their own thing, all these little happy faces all around the place, moving around. And this one individual had created his own script. I guess it was called Zap, because when he typed Zap, and we could see him type Zap, then a big lightning bolt would show up between, I think I have to stand again, I feel, okay, I'm gonna try sitting. The big lightning bolt would show up between, you know, that guy and you, and there'd be a big loud zap sound, and then your avatar wouldn't be able to move for about 10 seconds. And this was extremely detrimental to our conversation. We couldn't stand it. And we thought, you know what? We need our own place. We need our own Aboriginally determined territory in cyberspace so that we can have these conversations in peace. And you know, we realized that it's an important idea to have these spaces that are determined by Native people. So Cyberpowwow 2 was basically that. It was inviting artists to come and help build a palace. And once we did that, it was time to invite in our neighbors, our lovers, our relatives, our non-Native, our friends, all these non-Native people, because I thought also what was happening at that time was a lot of the work was really kind of just about being Native. That was very important and necessary. But I felt that there was like, okay, come on, we all have non-Native people in our lives that matter to us. So how about we talk about that? And that's what we did do in Cyberpowwow 2K. Cyberpowwow 4, we kept thinking about this idea of territory. And so if a territory, the important part of a real life territory is that we have natural resources. Well, what are the unnatural resources of a cyber territory? And all of these essays and some of the artwork and documentation of the artwork is still online at cyberpowwow.net if you want to check it out. The first project in which I consciously tried to imagine the future was called Imagining Indians in the 25th Century. This was a commission by the Edmonton Art Gallery for the new millennium. If you remember, there was lots of money in Canada, at least, for these kinds of shows. Imagining Indians is a web-based paper doll/time travel journal. I set up a timeline of 1 millennium, and the main character, Gadzitsahawi, she travels to one date per century. It starts in 1490, 2 years before the arrival of Columbus to the so-called New World, new to who, and ends in 2490 at the Edmonton Olympics, which Edmontonians were quite happy to see in this piece. And along the way, Gadzitsahawi has a journal. It describes her interaction with the character or with that time in a journal entry, and she wears an appropriate costume. And so basically, again, you click through. Unfortunately, this site is currently offline because I lost the domain name. All right. So Thanksgiving address, which you've already heard a tiny bit of the real thing. This is another piece that was made in 2002 with my partner Jason Lewis. It's a video triptych created in Flash, and it was made in 2002, so it sounds kind of terrible, but I'm going to just play you a tiny bit of it. And of course, what it is imagining how the Thanksgiving address might evolve or might have an addition in which we thank the technological world. Oh, boo. Wait, anybody have any ideas why this isn't working? No, this is a little video of it. So if we really want to see it, I think what I'm going to do is is play the actual file, because I'd like to show you. I just have to actually search for it. This is probably bad practice, for a keynote. This, technology, though, always fails you. All right, here we go. Oh my God, it's so tiny. Can I? Okay, but you'll get the gist of it. Can I control?
Today we have gathered to thank the Creator for all our gifts. We have been given the duty to live in balance and harmony with each other and all technological things. So now, we bring our minds together as one, and we give greetings and thanks. We are all thankful for the computer, the platform from which we can create and communicate. Daily, this tool enriches our lives. For this, we send greetings and thanks. Now our minds are one.
We give thanks for TCP/IP. With it, our computers can talk to each other across the continents and across cultures. Whether it's our voices speaking, our language typing, or our eyes seeing, TCP/IP guides the data where it needs to go. Packets are sent out, packets are received. All is in order. For this we give thanks. Now our minds are one.
Yay. All right, so now I got to get back into here. Yay. Okay, actually, is that right? No. I need to escape. Oh, okay. No.
You can close it.
Ah!
No. QuickTime Player.
Thank you. Okay. All right, so fast forward a couple more years now to, I think, 2005. Jason and I got a fabulous grant from Social Sciences and Humanities Research Council. Oh, my goodness. That wasn't actually even in the script. That's the problem, eh? Okay. All right, so you know where the title came from, and basically this grant was for Aboriginal research networks, and what we had been thinking about for a long time now was how do we make sure that Native people are helping to basically create and shape cyberspace. We felt like other technologies, like the camera, had kind of come in and had been used to shape what people thought about us. And this was sort of the first time that there was enough of us that enough of us had access to this new tool that we could help shape it and make sure that we represented ourselves using it as well. So that's the basic overarching tenet of Aboriginal territories in cyberspace. We also wanted to share and define conceptual and practical tools that would allow us to create new Aboriginally determined territories in cyberspace. All right. One of our biggest projects is called Skins. It's a workshop that teaches Aboriginal youth how to take stories from their own lives and communities and turn them into video games. Or another way that I like to put it is taking oral tradition and translating it into new media. We wanted to see these kids become empowered to be producers, not just consumers of video games and these new medias. We also felt that we were giving them some valuable, marketable skills in teaching them some of these tools, skills that they could take with them into, for example, the game industry if they so desired. So to explain it a little bit more, the kids learn a wide range of ideas and skills, starting with tales, legends, and histories from their community. They learn how to transform that story from the oral tradition into a new one. And once they've done that challenging conceptual work, we teach them the basis of the technical stuff, 3D modeling, animation, and programming, to name the biggies. I believe we're also teaching them how to be proud of their heritage and who they are as Indigenous people today, and ultimately how to see themselves in the future. A few of the other things that we did, well, like a machinima workshop. This is Aboriginal territories in cyberspace. Residencies and internships, and also mentorships. And now we come to Time Traveler. This is Time Traveler TM. This is another big project that AbTech undertook. It is the story. It's a story. It's a movie. I'm going to tell you about it and show you some of it. It's the story of Hunter, an angry young Mohawk man who lives in the year 2121. And in this time, there is a technology that allows you to not really time travel, but to kind of go to, like the holodeck on Star Trek, you can see and participate in historical events. It's really a lot like imagining Indians in the 25th century, but kind of on testosterone. It's a machinima. And so for those of you who don't know, machinima is making movies in virtual environments. And so the virtual environment I chose is Second Life. I'd love a show of hands. See how many people know Second Life? Because I think it's gonna be a lot more than the Palace, yeah. I chose Second Life because when I saw Second Life, I was like, it's the Palace all grown up. Here was, 3D human forms walking around through space, being able to interact just like in the Palace, same thing actually, little balloons at first, and now of course you can just use voice chat. But the most amazing thing about it really was that it gave you, within that world, the tools to create the world. And so you are able to make a little tiny ring or a great big skyscraper and everything in between. And I soon saw that it would be a really interesting place to, that you'd be able to make movie sets, and you're also able to, of course, customize avatars. So I'm going to show you a few clips from Time Traveler TM. I hope they work, but I've got the backup in there. I think I must have opened a wrong, I don't know what happened here. But my apologies. Taking precious time. Okay. So this one describes to you how the glasses work. And you see Hunter in his apartment. I have actually skipped the part where he introduces himself for the sake of time.
I'm thinking maybe I need a new aim in life. Screen on.
Traveling through time these days is easy, thanks to Time Traveler TM. Witness important historical events or interact with the people who made them happen. You can even customize your own events and visit with your great-great-great-great-grandmother. All customized characters must have existed. It's easy and fun. Visit www.timetravelertm.com.
Time Traveler TM. On. Yeah, they use these in schools for history class. It takes all the known facts about a particular event in history, a speech, a battle, a day in the life of, and recreates it for you in living color. It's basically like going into a full-on 3D chat room and hanging out with famous dead people, like Geronimo. I'm interested in a little hand-to-hand combat. It's one of my specialties. So, let's try Indian and Massacre. More than 86,000 hits, but most of them talk about Indians being massacred. I want to know about Indians who were doing some massacring. Let me try the trusty random function. Figure odds are good that I'll get to see some good old-fashioned killing, at least. I figure a little visiting with my ancestors, a little recon with my role models, could do me some good right now. Give me a new perspective. Go ahead. Call it a vision quest.
So then he gets to see this little show, you can say, and and then basically it's a representation of the Minnesota Massacre, and it's told, of course, by the white, dominant culture, and so he watches it, and this is what he thinks.
I seriously consider unplugging from this scene, only I actually get sucked in by the story. This one Sioux hunter dares his friend to kill this white farmer, so the friend kills the farmer's whole family. Then all the Sioux go on a rampage and kill hundreds of settlers. They cut off people's heads, rape women, torture children, and loot a few towns. It really gets the audience riled up. This ridiculous, unsophisticated agitprop has done the trick. And if I was one of these guys, I'd be ready to kill the savages too. But I'm not buying it. If there's one thing every Indian knows, it's this. When it comes to history, always get a second opinion. At least I got one thing out of coming here. I know where I'm going next.
So that's where the title of the talk comes from. And now, so that, so far you've seen a little bit of the future, but I'm going to show you much more of this next episode, episode 4. So what happens is there's a young woman who ends up coming into the story, and her name is Xavier, and this is who you're going to see now.
St. Francis Xavier Mission, founded in 1668. Crazy, and I thought I was old. This is the shrine of Kateri Tekakwitha, the lily of the Mohawks. Kateri? Hunter? Did that just happen? I'm not sure if that was a religious experience, a flashback, or a rift in the space-time continuum. What the hell? Wow. These feel amazing. Light as air, yet more comfortable. And something tells me they are not your ordinary sunglasses. Everything looks like I'm in a Terminator movie, and I'm the Terminator. Famous Mohawks. How do you work this thing?
Welcome, you beautiful Aboriginal people. Welcome. Welcome to the Manitowoc Powwow 2112. And for all of you watching on the net, we are broadcasting, nearcasting, and podcasting live from the Winnipeg Olympic Stadium.
Did he just say 2112?
My name is Luke Mithawasti, and I am absolutely honored to be your host this weekend. We have so much in store for you today and tomorrow. You will witness some of the best drumming and dancing in the galaxy. Tonight, after the competition, treat yourself to a concert of cutting-edge music featuring the most notorious FN punk band ever, the famous Dead Mohawks.
Famous Dead Mohawks? That's pretty funny, actually.
And tomorrow night, it's time to trade in your moccasins for some Manolo Blahniks and come to the fabulous Manitowoc Fashion Show, featuring all the heavy hitters, Dorothy Grant, Chanel, Tammy Boba, and more. you are going to get a sneak peek into all of next season's regalia collections. I won't give away too much, but I do have 3 words for you. Personal strobe lights. Look at all those beautiful jingle dancers.
Hey, I'm on screen.
Our dancers are competing for some incredible prizes. Not only does every dancer get a free eyewear implant just for participating, but we're also giving away a space cruise to Saturn's rings, his and hers matching Ferraris, and $1 billion in cold hard cash.
I wish I was a better jingle dancer.
And now, allow me to introduce our stunning head female dancer, who was featured on the cover of Italian Vogue this month, hailing from the Cree Nation and just winding up her reign as Miss Universe 2111, Amethyst Starblanket.
I wonder if Hunter's here.
Oh, it's good to see you all here, all together, you beautiful people. Do you know, my grandmother told me at one time her grandmother told her the powwow was outlawed. They didn't want us Indians to get together in public. They didn't want us to get together because we'd talk, we'd plan. So, what did we do? We got together in private. We got busy. As record numbers of Indian babies were born in the 21st century, the powwow grew and thrived with more dancers, singers, and drummers, bigger shows, larger audiences, and worldwide broadcast rights.
I should be videotaping this.
Ooh, did you see that fancy dance? It goes by so quickly. Let's watch the instant replay on big screen.
Oh my God, I think that's him. Come on, these glasses gotta be able to do something.
Cliffhanger. All right, so you know we're a little bit behind schedule, but I am still nonetheless going to show you one more. It's a pretty short clip. There we go. Oh well. I forgot to tell you that it's in 9 episodes, and the whole thing together takes about 75 minutes to watch. And they are all online as well. And now, I think I don't need to tell you much. I think you'll understand. It's weird that it's not working, huh?
The glasses are more addictive than Bejeweled. After I finish my final semester, Hunter and I go on a time traveler joyride. We visit Pocahontas in England. I had no idea she was Queen Anne's BFF. We walk with Sacagawea to the shore of the Pacific and see the big fish, as she called it. But the best stuff is the future. Well, my future. It's all well in the past for Hunter. Indigenous peoples everywhere have made incredible advancements. It starts when Quebec finally separates from Canada. The Cree promptly separate from Quebec and form a confederacy with all their cousins to the west. The Haudenosaunee soon follow, then the Anishinaabe, then the Blackfoot. I guess all our hard work finally pays off.
Oh, let's leave her up there. Actually, I do have a couple more slides. Now this is moved over here. Okay, let's just you know, all right, you know what, I'm just gonna, oh, there it is, great. These computers. Gosh, whose idea was that? Okay. Yay. Okay. So now Jason and I, and a few other people, have launched a new initiative called the Initiative for Indigenous Futures. And we're going to be doing a lot of the same things, actually, that we did when we started AbTech. We want to do residencies. So we're going to do residencies on the future imaginary. And sorry, I should say that it's changed a little bit from just saying, all right, we want to see Aboriginal people in cyberspace, to let's consciously start thinking about the future. Let's invite Indigenous people to really think about the future. We can't do it all alone. And our residencies are interesting to me because they're actually not just going to be artist residencies, they're going to be non-artist residencies as well. So we're thinking, for example, maybe a lawyer to talk about, I don't know, the future law, maybe food sovereignty people to talk about what's that going to be like in the future. I mean, there's a lot of, health. There's so many issues to think about. We will continue with the skins workshops. We want to make them a little more mobile, a little bit able to go out into other reserves, other places, other territories. The Aboriginal New Media Arts Archive. This is, as we talked about here at this conference, and as probably we always talk about, new media art is hard to archive, and Aboriginal new media art doubly so. So we're going to work on that. And finally, the Symposia on the Future Imaginary. So each year or so, we will convene a bunch of people who are thinking about this stuff to let us know the kind of work that they've been doing. So, in conclusion, I want to tell you that I believe that Native people have had to overcome the threat of extinction. I believe we've done that. We're here. We no longer have to speak about our very survival. Native people have had to fight for our cultures and our languages through widespread revitalization programs that are happening right now. I think that is happening. What is next is for us to think about the idea of thriving. Who do we want to be in the future? What, as individuals, nations, reserves, what do we have to offer society in general? That's my talk. Thank you. Nyamagoa.
I'm very curious about your choice of a kind of episodic format. So it is one work that lasts 75 minutes, but you chose to produce it and present it as 9 different episodes. And I think that I'd like you to speak about the relationship to time that a kind of episodic structure can develop. And more specifically, the kind of going back and forth or weaving of past, present, and future that each episode does, but also that the episodic structure can put forth.
Well, there were a few reasons for it, right? Of course, there was a practical reason, which was that, I didn't mention, Time Traveler TM took 7 or 8 years to make. It was really an effort. Because it was a brand new medium. That's one reason. The first episode took 2 years to make because we were just trying out, myself and the team of students that I eventually had, but at first it was just me, and then just me and one research assistant. We didn't know how to do anything at all. So we were trying it out, and it took that long to figure it out. And thankfully, the first episode was totally written already. I had ideas for other episodes, but they had yet to be written. So the episode, the non-practical reason or the conceptual reason is that it felt more like time travel, really. I really felt that each event was kind of modular. Each event was, him with the glasses. I always knew that Time Traveler TM was going to be a reality TV show in the end, I always knew it was going to be, I had created this very sort of, our world, but more like very commercial, very, celebrity and entertainment oriented. And so I knew that was all part of it. And so I think the episodes speak to that. And of course they speak to the idea of time travel as well. Sort of like, instead of it all being linear in one way, you can jump through. Of course, the episodes are, the story's linear. It's told in a linear manner, but the time travel isn't. You go back and forth, past to future, present. There's two presents after, because we have the two protagonists, they end up having 2121 is a present and 2011 is a present.
Thanks. And coming back to your more current project, which is to kind of gather a number of people around you to think about the future. I guess my question there is that it seems, I'd like you to speak to one thing in particular. It seems to me that the kind of the models of the futures that are most present right now are kind of prophetic models. What I mean by that is that the kind of structure or the narrative structure that is the economy is purely prophetic, and austerity is one manifestation of that kind of prophetic discourse. We also see in the kind of political realm the power of religious prophecy on all sides, kind of dictating the agenda, neoliberalism and so on. So I'd like to, open up and think about how working with the media that you're working with, what kind of other kinds of futures might be possible. So what is it in the kind of platforms and technologies that you're using that might allow you to kind of move beyond prophecy? Or, the other thing is the notion of the future as futurology, which is pretty much only risk management. So how do we move beyond these two dominant stories?
Well, you and I spoke a little bit about this in preparation for this, and but you didn't bring in the technology part, and I don't know. I don't know the answer to that. And one of the things that I think you do know is I'm losing my faith in technology. I'm not sure. It's certainly not what I signed up for originally. But about the prophetic thing, we talked about, Sylvie and I talked about the Iroquois worldview of life, which is a little bit different or maybe a lot, from some of the Christian, this idea of, you just have to get through this life because, and if you're good, you'll get to heaven. But in the Iroquois worldview, it's like, all I have to do is find my path. I have to find the thing that I love doing and do it. That is what the Creator meant for us to do. And so it's this other idea, right? It's like, we're meant to have a good time here, which is kind of cool, right? And so, what does that mean? Like, how would that change if we adopted that as our way of looking at life and the world? How would that change everything? How would that change war? We solved a lot of problems yesterday talking about this. How would that change people's acting? Acting today, and how would could it bring peace? It's possible.
And coming back to your work, I guess what I meant to tease out was the presence of glitches, loops, imperfections, repetitions, recombinations that are in your kind of storytelling strategy as well as in the technology. And so if you could speak maybe a little bit about the productive use of those elements.
So in Time Traveler TM, right, it's a glitch that allows Gorokwahaway to have these glasses, this second pair of glasses, and come, these glasses appear in our time, and now she's able to actually time travel. And so I thought there's, I never thought of the fact that, oh yeah, technology has glitches, so I'm going to use glitch as a literary device, but it works kind of well, I think. But I think I used it because I wanted to introduce magic and sort of things that are, some things that are not considered allowed even in science fiction, I think sometimes, so so glitch is allowed in science fiction, magic not so much, although I do of course talk about magic in the movie eventually. And then the looping, I don't know, man, I just love it. I just love the looping. It's sort of the idea of time being cyclical, or, the idea of not being, perhaps maybe that the past is not fixed and the future's not fixed, remembering in two directions. I love that idea. So those are some of the things that is that enough for you?
That's great. Now everybody else jump in. There's a couple of mics. I guess there's one over there and one over here so that we can hear you well.
Hi, SKAWENNATI, that was great.
Thank you.
I'm cheating slightly because I have two questions. So one is, your work is so funny. I mean, the humor is so incredibly compelling. And I'm curious how much you work in an aware way with your humor versus it just being a kind of methodology that's, part of kind of how you experiment. And then the other, you said something very striking about, the need for young people to be able to think forward if they're going to thrive. So I'm really curious about the kinds of narratives that the youth, when they're thinking about the future, that the youth are imagining. So I'm sorry, I really did cheat and ask two questions.
That's okay. What was the first one again, though?
Your sense,
humor.
your weird sense of humor. Yeah.
So I don't believe I'm actually super aware. Like I don't try to use it as a strategy. I don't say, okay, I really told this really awful thing right now, so there needs to be a funny part right here. It sort of just flows. It's the way that I think it's really the way that I operate in the world, my own self, So, and I like that. Like I don't want to be too strategic. I believe that creating art is a felt thing. And I feel it, and I want to express how it comes out. So yeah, I mean, of course, I'm aware on certain levels that it's sugarcoating a hard pill to swallow at times. I mean, it helps the pill go down. There's like some crappy history, right? But I think people need to know it, and the humor certainly doesn't hurt, but it is my personal way, I think, of going through the world, and so yeah. Now the future stories, we have not yet gotten those stories. One of the surprises that I felt is when these kids, when we did the skins workshops and we asked the kids what stories they wanted to tell, they just, totally went backwards. So in the first time, and backwards meaning to the past, of course, the first time we did it, it was totally natural. I mean, I saw that was how we presented it to them. We said, we're going to translate some of our myths or our legends into a video game. So of course, it felt like, I think they felt, and we all expected to go to the past. So slowly over time, as I began to be much more interested in the future, much more consciously interested in the future, I changed that framework. So when I presented it to the youth, I would say, it doesn't, stories from your community, stories from your life, so these kinds of stories. We start each workshop with a storytelling event, and we invite usually Mohawks to come and tell stories. And so the first time, we invited people who told like our creation story and, old stories. The third time I did it, I invited an iron worker. I asked him to talk about his life and interesting things that happened in his life. I invited Ellen Gabriel, who, for those of you who don't know, was the spokesperson for the Oka crisis, which was 1990, so that's like still pretty recent for most of us, to talk about that. And then I invited our traditional storyteller. So I gave the youth a choice. So we're still early in that process. We haven't gotten that much future stuff. The last story was not a legend. It was a story of a young woman who had just graduated from university. She was going back home to her reserve Akwesasne, and she had to learn some of the old ways in order to. She had to use her archaeology degree and some of the things she learned from her grandmother in order to solve a mystery and find the peacemaker's wampum. Thanks, though. That was a great question.
I have another question for your Futures project. As somebody from the outside of your culture, what has always really impressed me is the notion of harmony of men and nature, or woman and nature, and the fact that indigenous cultures here in the US and in Canada did not have a perception of ownership of land. If we see how we're treating nature, how we're mistreating nature, conquering it with a capitalist economic model, do you think on an artistic way you have something to contribute and that you can teach us about our respect for nature in an artistic way or political way, whichever you choose?
Well, yes, but mostly. You know, I'm doing this, all the stuff that I am doing with Jason and others is because we believe we can change the world. Now, the eco stuff is not my bag, you know, but I think that that's where the Initiative for Indigenous Futures comes in, because I think there are so many people who are thinking about that right now. I mean, the food sovereignty thing, there are people who are learning how to grow again in traditional ways, people who are figuring out, what our diets were. They're trying out paleo diets. They're trying out, there's another term for like eating like the food of my ancestors. Can anyone remember? You two, I'm looking at you two. Anyway, there's a lot of very interesting things happening. So absolutely. I mean, that's kind of what we're doing. World domination in a nice way. Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Hello.
Hi.
Thank you for the refreshing presentation, the standing and the moving. It was, from a performative point of view, it was also very nice coming from someone of the performance. And I have a question also because I'm totally sympathetic about the fact of being a minority and embracing the thing. Also because I think we are all here in relationship to contemporary world, another minority. Even when I entered the art school, which I left to come here, the star of the school, the Prix de Rome in contemporary art, Laurent Montaron, called me and said to me, he was at the school, so he said, Armando, digital art and technological art, this thing doesn't exist, and you can tell me between us. So we are also a minority. You're a minority within a minority, and it's funny the feeling of being close in this. But I want to ask you something that it's always a question for me in people who are embracing their art from this point of view, because there is this phrase by Alain Robbe-Grillet, which is the inventor of the New Novel in the 60s in France. He said something that is always intriguing for me and which is like a guide. He says, I will say it in French before because it's precise and I'm not sure my English is good enough to be that precise. He says, l'art ne doit pas... Non, quelle est la fonction d'une œuvre d'art? La fonction d'une œuvre d'art n'est pas de défendre une idée ou illustrer un propos, même si c'est une bonne idée ou si c'est un bon propos. La fonction d'une œuvre d'art, c'est de faire surgir une question que l'on n'avait pas. The function... Surgir is to pop up, emerge. Surgir, Sally Jane? Yes. Faire surgir, it's the function of art is to make pop up a new question in the mind I didn't have before. And so of course this is linked to the personal reading, but what are the new ideas or the new questions that we didn't have in mind that your work would hopefully make pop up in people's head.
You need to tell me that, dude. That is your job.
No, I'm sorry, not totally. I mean, as an artist, you have at least a vague idea or direction in which, I mean, it's not about putting ideas in people's head.
But I think that's what my presentation was. You know, there was very, now it's changed, but 20 years ago, there were no images of Native people in the future.
No, and you know that now the new icons in System 9, iOS 9, have colored people, also of all colors. Before it was there was also only yellow, only yellow icons, and also couples, gay couples and lesbian couples in the icons. It's something new. It came with Tim at the head of up. So I understand this, and this is a new direction. But what would be the dream competent reading of your work? I don't know if it's clear what I mean.
Yeah, I think it is. Sylvie asked me the same thing in another way. I don't know. I mean, I don't have an answer for you right now. I haven't, you know, I just, you know, I was able to tell her the questions I didn't want to hear. You know, the dream reading, I don't know, it's got a number of layers, right? Like there's some things I want like Native people to look at and go like, oh yeah, we can be there in the future. You know, actually that's probably it. I just want everyone to think that. It's kind of simple, really.
With the question of time, you know, it's past, present, future, of course, that collapses in the present. The question of futurity, which is le futur antérieur, something that's in the future, but it's already occurred. And so I'm just, you know, I'm curious about the concepts of time that you're exploring in there, because of course you're projecting us into, you know, 2121, and there's been a lot of images of the future, you know, and so I'm just, you know, there's just this collapsing of time into our present, like le présent continu, le présent éternel. So would you, you know, when you're talking about looping before, could you just expand a little bit more on that? Like, what's that doing in the work?
Well, I'm not sure if I'm answering your question very well, Giselle, but, you know, I think what it's doing is taking us actually out of this present, putting us into another place that's maybe even out of time, and allowing us to look at it all as a whole, you know? And so maybe that's it, like, this circle is actually the story, right? And it just keeps going. And perhaps if we can step out of time for a minute and look at it all with this story, maybe we can do that with our story.
So you already mentioned that you kind of have a belief in technology, and it's gone, that feeling.
I'm so sorry, could you just repeat?
You already mentioned that you have belief in technology that's somehow gone. So I'd like to frame a question about that notion, very political and social notion of using technologies. As different technologies, if you are talking about digital technologies, have its history mostly based in military research, pattern recognition. The technologies you mention in your works, like Google Maps, this is all military technology, the automatization of different kind. And for example, there's also social paradigms used in Second Life. It's actually truly colonization, kind of white men doing Wild West, catch your territory. It's even the creator of was recalling that, not having self-reflection that's very colonization and politically incorrect. So do you have any take on critical stand of technologies that you are commenting or using in your narratives?
Yes. So we'll go starting with Second Life and go a little bit backwards. So Second Life, here's the thing. You know, I decided when I started with the palace, I decided I knew I was not going to be creating new technologies. Like, I was not going to create my own parallel palace. I was very happy to use the structure that the palace created. Think about this, the palace, right? Even the name implies imperialism, right? But I thought, you know, it's possible for us to still, you know, subvert it. And I mean, I don't even feel I was being so subversive. I just mean it is possible for us to take these skeletons or these tools and to, you know, make them our own, or to take what's good out of them and still tell our stories and talk about what we need to talk about. Second Life, well, it's the same thing. It was so useful. The things that I could do in Second Life were worth the body image problems, and were worth, you know, I actually don't feel it's that colonial. I mean, it's not too bad, in my opinion. Certainly when we started using Second Life, there were no brown skin. Hunter was the brownest skin I could find. So but that changed. I mean, you know, you have to give, I feel it's good to give credit to Linden Labs, who makes Second Life, for making that world something that we had control in. The users were able to make stuff. So the users finally were like, there are no brown people here, and they made them, you know? It's not great that Linden Labs couldn't think to make them themselves, but, you know, like, you know, they made the whole structure, so the rest of us could fill in the blanks, sort of, you know? My disappointment, you know, yeah, I was young when I started falling in love with computers, and it really was a love affair. I mean, I remember computer as a design tool. This was a class, an elective I could take at Concordia, and I took it, and boy was I happy. And then I found out about Amiga computers, and there was an Amiga lab at Concordia, and I went there on my, you know, on my own time, not as a class, I mean, and I learned how to use the Amiga computers, and I you know, I loved just that. I loved the aesthetic. I loved the power that I felt, you know, with imagery, with the computer. And then when the internet came to us, or came to me, again through Concordia, and also through Obro, an artist-run center I was working at, you know, I felt it was very powerful as a tool for us to use. And what has happened, right, is planned obsolescence has happened. What has happened is, you know, advertising has you know, come in. Yes, the military was always there. I was always aware that that's where the internet really started. Jason has written a fantastic text that talks about the ghosts of the internet, you know, and can we escape the past? Can we escape the ghost of the internet, you know, which is a military tool? I don't know, you know, but I certainly was trying for a long time.
Last chance.
Hi. Thank you for showing these videos. One of the things that I'm an immigrant. I'm South American. I live in North America. I'm a woman who speaks Spanish in a white country. And so I see challenges in like coming in and trying to put yourself in a standard social class, whatever. And one of the things that I noticed in the video is this kind of memory. I want to remember the pain. I want to remember how much my past has suffered. And I could put that in any other situation. I was like, oh, I'm a South American. I just want to remember how the Spaniards came and destroyed my past, or destroyed their past because I'm white. Or the Second World War II, or like any other thing that has caused so much pain in history, not only for Native Americans or Native South Americans or any other cultures in the world. And I think that when the moment that we look at the future, it's important for us to make peace with our past so we can have a peaceful future. If I'm going to teach my new generation about the intrinsics of pain that has caused the white world, then I'm going to transfer. I'm going to continue with the tradition of pain, and rather than just like make peace with that. Because today, here, I believe we, people from all over the world, you know, they're from China, and blah, 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 different cultures, different language, different ideas. And we are using technology to unify those things, to gather a brighter community rather than the separation. This idea of like, finally the Quebec was separate from this, or finally that. I found it a little bit like, really, do we need to make that emphasis on rather than having the one mind, as you started the talk, and saying like, I'm going to separate because I feel that I'm extracted myself from a past and I don't longer be part of this, because these are the people who colonize, and I from the outside who wants to introduce myself to prove that I exist. So it comes to me like this is a little bit contradictory. But again, I'm ignorant because I'm not Latin American, and probably the knowledge of the history of that for me is a little bit reduced. But as an artist, what we want to co-create is the question of how we can integrate rather than separate, in my opinion. So I don't know if your intentions are the same, or I don't know if you perhaps could share a little bit more about it in what I've seen or I have expressed.
Sure.
I don't know. Thank you.
What I think is that we Native people have, so I'm also Italian, right? My dad's Italian, my dad's an immigrant, and I never talk about Italian stuff in my work, you know? Why? Because there's not really a need, I think. But there is a need to talk about Native issues. There has been a silencing and there has been a pain that's quite recent, right? There's been trauma. And this pain has to be acknowledged, I think, before we can move on. My ultimate goal is like Star Trek, right? The human race is one race. And in fact, race as a term will disappear. That is what I would love to see. But I think that we have to pass through this part first. Another thing I want to mention is, well, you know, maybe even if you did see all of Time Traveler TM, you would still feel this way. But you know, Time Traveler TM is one story. It's one artwork. And it's not, I'm not trying to predict the future with that. I'm trying to show one kind of story. I'm showing what I think I'm doing in Time Traveler is showing an arc. I'm taking Hunter, and Hunter represents all Native people in this story. And he goes, when you didn't see this part, but you know, he starts off in this terrible base kind of way. He's a hired gun. He's kind of what I think is like the worst person imaginable. But he's very, very unhappy. And in the story, he learns to love himself. He learns to love another person, and because of the world I created, he becomes rich and famous. Okay, I wanted him to be successful, because I think, you know, there's a time in our history, which is not very recently. I put it at the 50s, where Native people looked like they were not going to make it. Okay, the policies of assimilation and genocide that were brought to us were working. But thankfully something happened, the civil rights movement, different things were happening, and people, I think what happened, turned towards their heritage. That's what he does in the story. And now all these other things that I mentioned at the end of the talk are happening, and people are getting better, and we're not worrying about survival anymore. Now we're looking out at success. So I think when we hit that, maybe we can, drop it all, drop all the political boundaries. No more country. I'm willing, I mean, you know, maybe that's work you should be making. Like I said, you know, I'm not going to make it all. I'm going to do, you know, what I can do and what I think of doing, but, you know, come and, you know, help us out. Thank you.
Thank you.